Well, Bear, we're back. We took a little week off there, but
much needed vacation time. Yes, needed.
Just like the NFL teams get their week off here before the Super Bowl, we had ours a little earlier.
Re-energize.
But now we've got the Super Bowl all matched up. Broncos, Panthers. I think that might be exactly what you said it was going to be a couple of weeks ago.
Is exactly what I said it would be.
Because I chastised you for taking
how rarely am I wrong?
Taking the top two teams.
Why would you doubt me ever? But I mean,
way to go, Chalk.
Yeah, I mean, it's
nice work.
1 versus 1, so I don't think I really went on a limb there. But Carolina's playing awfully well. That may get away from the Broncos if they can't, because Cam's way different than Brady or anybody else they've seen. And I know their defense is good, but Cam is he's at a different level right now.
It'll be a good matchup. We'll talk a little bit about it. Obviously, we got 2 weeks. There's media day, and then with basically like 12 days to hype the whole thing up.
A lot of hype.
We should also put a wrap on the Packers season since that happened while we were kind of away, and maybe talk a little bit about the Badgers and where they sit in the
big game tonight for Bucky.
And who knows what else might come to our mind over the next few minutes.
Who knows?
Oh, you want to throw some stones?
Bonspiel, why not?
All that coming up this week on Extra Points. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Extra Points. After a week away, we're back in business. This is John Barry right here. He's the sports reporter for the Gazette here on Eric Schmaltz. We get together usually on a weekly basis, but sometimes we got to take a little break.
Things come up.
Sometimes I go to Denver.
Sometimes the boss has got to go out of town and
nobody knows to pick up the slack.
Exactly. So you're impossible to replace. You're much like Al Fagerli, and
we should give a shout out to Al here to start the show. Thursday night, Parker Craig boys basketball game was over at Parker, but if you don't go, you should sit at home, old school style, flip on the radio, dial into 12:30 a.m. This is going to be Al Fagerli's last game after 36 years. That's
It's impressive, and
crazy run.
He is the Vin Scully of Janesville High School athletics, and I'm going to miss him. Sat next to him too many times to count at numerous events, and just a straight A. Straight-laced guy that tells it like it is, and was always very cordial and good to the kids, good to the parents, good to the coaches, and he'll be missed. And I think Mr. Goldberg, Josh Goldberg, was a good replacement, and I think he'll pick up where Al left off, but certainly Al is going to be sorely missed.
Yeah, it was fun talking to some former coaches and players and things over the last week just to kind of get their memories, and you talk to guys. I think it gets lost in these days because kids don't listen to radio that much anymore. But back in the day, that was the only way you'd ever hear your name. Yeah. And, you didn't have Twitter or things like that to have people throwing shout-outs out there. And you hear guys like Brian Martin and Ryan Masterson talking about how after they had a big game, they'd get the cassette tape made of it. And they still have those. And that's kind of just some fun memories.
Well, and, as many state titles as Al called, because there was the 3 from the Janesville Parker girls. Would have been 3 from the Craig baseball team. Al was there for all of them, and he's a voice that back in the day when GM was in its heyday and things were rolling there and they were doing 3 shifts, a lot of times on a Friday night, that plant, much of it was tuned into WCLO and Al's voice on a Friday night, whether it was Craig or Parker or whoever might have been playing. And like I say, he's going to be tough to replace.
So congrats to Al on his retirement after Thursday. And you'll get to listen to Josh and get to know him, and I'm sure he's going to do a great job.
He will, yep.
But an end of an era in Janesville. So kind of like there was an end to the Packers season while we were away here. It's been about 10 days or so now, but what a roller coaster of a game they had against the Arizona Cardinals. Maybe that kind of epitomizes the season because it was such a up and down from the beginning to the end. But they had, they were right there once again and right on the verge of an NFC championship game.
And played, didn't play their best, but certainly played much better than the 38-8 defeat they had a couple weeks prior. But, it comes down to a Hail Mary, and you put yourself in the position where, you've got no chance, and all of a sudden, an extra point, and you're into overtime. And thinking back, I wondered if they'd have been better off going for 2.
Right.
And I think you and I had talked about that. And really, you've got Arizona on its heels. They just are trying to figure out what just happened. We just gave up a 60-yard scoring play. Now all of a sudden you decide to go for 2. you're on the road. You're certainly overmatched because of injuries and everything else. You're down to your fifth and sixth string wide receivers, and might have been a time for McCarthy to roll the dice and go for two. And, obviously if you don't make it, you're criticized. But if you make it, you look like a genius. And I think, rather than take your chances in overtime, and as it turned out, one play end of their season when Fitzgerald got loose for about a 70-yard pass play. So, hindsight's 20/20, but certainly, not the way after a 6-0 start that they envisioned this season to end. But
I guess that's the big question. What do you take away from this season? I mean, there was that stretch at the beginning where they looked like the team that was a Super Bowl contender. Then there were times where you wondered if they even belonged in the playoffs, and when the playoffs did roll around, we wondered if they even had a chance to beat Washington, which is a team that you would never expect the Packers to lose to. And then they beat them, and they look pretty good, and then they're right in it with Arizona. I mean, it was so many different things that happened. What do you take away from the season as a whole? Well,
I think the first thing is obviously getting Jordy Nelson back is going to make them a different team. They were exposed a number of times just because they didn't have anybody to stretch the field. And people can say, well, Cobb's just as fast as Jordy. That might be, but he didn't have that deep threat. He didn't have the deep threat that Nelson had, and that was evident many times. Cobb didn't have a long scoring plays this year. Most of his stuff came on underneath routes. But I think the one thing that Green Bay certainly has got to address in the offseason is tight end. They've got to get an athlete in there, somebody that can make plays and open things up for those guys. But I think otherwise on offense, I see already Eddie Lacy's hired a P90X trainer. So obviously Eddie got McCarthy's message that, as Tom Miller, our coworker, said, feast mode won't be in anyone's eyes next year. And he's got to get better and in better shape and stay healthy. But I think obviously tight end, and then defensively, is Peppers back? Where are they at defensively? But, I think certainly Green Bay is, they're going to be good next year. There's no question
What about
that.
receiver?
Well, obviously Nelson and Cobb and Montgomery they liked before he got hurt. Abadaris, I think they liked what they saw him, and certainly
Janis looked
good
in the last game.
Great. I mean, that's 5 right there. And is James Jones back? Don't know.
He's getting up there.
Devontae Adams, I mean, they liked him. I mean, there's possibilities.
Devontae Adams,
he
dropped things left and right.
So, I mean, there's options there. I don't think he can keep 7 or 8 wide receivers, so somebody's got to go. My guess is that Jones won't be re-signed. But
you got to see. I guess you also got to see what you get with Jordy. I mean, is he going to be back to the 100% Jordy of old? And you never know.
No, you don't.
Give Aaron some protection too. I mean, that line obviously was beat up.
It was,
but you gotta find a way to protect him, and you have to give him the tools to win here in the next 2 or 3 years, because you never know when that's going to dry up.
And I read an interesting story. I don't remember who wrote it. Might have been Jeff Patrikas from the Journal Sentinel, but just talking about the kind of between McCarthy and Thompson, a little bit of friction, just because I think McCarthy's tired of the fact that Thompson won't go the free agent route to sign veteran players, and a lot of times when you see other teams having success doing that, Ted has wanted to build up through the draft and signing younger players, but they may have to go out and sign some guys, especially on the line, maybe a veteran tight end, but somebody that gives that offense a little bit more experience. And certainly Rodgers has got to get protected.
Because you got to. It's nice to build up like that, and they've done it successfully that way. But when Rodgers isn't getting any younger, and you got to give him as much as you can give him in his prime here.
Exactly.
We'll see what they do here in the offseason.
Going to be interesting.
The relationship between Rodgers and McCarthy was interesting at times.
And McCarthy really, his playoff success basically lies in 2010, and that's it. I mean, he's struggled since then. So, I think some decisions that'll have to be made, and I think they will. I don't think you'll see any wholesale changes. I don't think McCarthy's gone. I don't think they're going to do anything drastic, but there may be some subtle changes just to try to get a little bit of better team chemistry than they had this year.
We still got about a week and a half away from the Super Bowl, but initial impressions, I guess, are it's always about the quarterbacks, and obviously Cam's there for the first time. Manning, maybe his last game ever. The other thing to me, I guess, I would say these are 2 of the best defenses in the NFL right now that are going to go up against each other, which should make for a fun matchup.
Well, and I think Manning, did he look great against New England, no. I thought the first half he looked pretty good. Second half he looked.
They didn't ask him to do a lot.
He didn't have to do a whole lot because the defense was so dominant with Von Miller and them. But I think now he'll get another week of rest. Peyton's still got some guys that can play. I mean, Demaryius Thomas didn't do anything in the championship game, but with Hillman and Anderson, they've got good running backs. And then certainly defensively with the playmakers that they have, especially up front with Wolf and Ware and Von Miller and those guys, they're going to devise something to try to slow down Cam. I just don't know if he can. And obviously, the weapons really aren't there for Carolina other than Cam. I mean, none of their wide receivers really scare you. Greg Olsen
has been pretty good.
Yeah,
obviously
Olsen's been a stud.
Yeah,
he has been a stud, and he's Cam's kind of go-to guy. And I think every team game plans to stop him, but he seems to always make big plays. And I think defensively with Luke Kuechly and Norman at in the secondary, Carolina's
Thomas Davis. Good. I know he got hurt the other day, but he's been really good.
He said he's going to play despite having surgery on a broken arm.
Maybe you get Jared Allen back.
Right.
I mean, they've got playmakers on that side of the ball.
I would certainly favor Carolina. And I think if they get ahead early and put a lot of pressure on Manning, it could be a long day for Denver.
I'm obviously going to be rooting for Denver.
I obviously will. I don't care. I really don't.
We'll make some picks next week and maybe talk about a little more once we figure out who's playing and see what some of the storylines that come out during the whole thing. And I think it's going to be a really good game.
I do too. And I think there's some good story. I think the Panthers are a great story. I think chance to go 18-1. It's only been done twice. The Bears in 85 and the 49ers in 84. And obviously New England won 18-1, but their last game was a loss, so it's a little bit different there. So,
what about Cam? Where are you at on the Cam thing? Because some people just don't like his antics, but
you know what? What's his job? To entertain and win football games. What's he doing? He's entertaining and he's winning football games. So I'm okay with it. I mean, and I don't mean to knock specifically the Packers, but how is that any different than Aaron Rodgers giving the belt or the Lambeau Leap or anything like that?
It's a little more emphatic, and he does it on every first down, whereas these guys mostly do it on big plays or something.
And if you don't like it,
whatever, stop him, right?
Stop him, yeah. I mean, put a shoulder into him and stop him and shut him up until somebody can do that. I'm okay with it. It's the NFL. It's fun, and I want to be entertained, and he's entertaining, and you're right. You either like him or you hate him, and I've seen a lot on Twitter and Facebook that he's a hot dog and a showboat, and yeah, he probably is, but he's got his team in the Super Bowl, and he's going to be the MVP of the league, so
I'm on board.
He may get the last laugh.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where else do you want to go? Badgers?
Badger hoops. I was ready to jump off the bandwagon. They've turned it around a little bit. I still think, recruiting-wise in that they're in a tough position just because it's tough to bring a kid in not knowing who the coach is going to be. And, you're kind of giving Guard this tryout, but my thought is if he's not going to be your guy, then – let's move on. And if he's going to be your guy, then let's settle it now and say he's going to be our guy and let him recruit. So, big game tonight against Indiana. They're won 12 in a row. I thought the Badgers should have beat them the first time down there. They didn't. So
had their chances.
Had their chances. Sure. So interesting. And you've gotten a chance to see him a couple times in person. I have not. So, I'm sure you've seen the progression as well.
Yeah, it's been. I've been I was definitely on the why would they hire Guard long term? I'm coming around on it a little bit, and I'm willing to kind of wait and see a little bit more. But I think in talking with some people over the weekend, this stretch here is pretty huge. If they could get a win against Indiana, then their schedule's a little bit easier here for a week or two before you have the real tough games at the end of the year. If they want to get back in any sort of postseason picture, I mean, they need this run right here to really get them going.
They've got to get to 20 wins. It's probably the benchmark to get to, and that might get them back in the tournament. But like you had talked about, Indiana tonight on Tuesday, and then it's Illinois, Ohio State, Minnesota. I mean, those are all winnable games.
And you got to go on a run and build some momentum. You got to go on a run, and are they going to win them all? No, but if you can get to 8-4, 9-4 in the Big Ten, then all of a sudden it's different. It helps certainly with your seeding in the conference tournament because if you got to play on that first day, you don't come out of that. And it helps build some swagger back for when you do hit that stretch at the end of the year where it's going to be pretty tough against the upper echelon teams from the Big Ten.
I think Nigel Hayes coming out and kind of giving it to him, not only himself but to the team as well, has sparked him a little bit. And certainly Ethan Happ is the real deal. I mean, that kid can play. Koenig is starting to understand that he doesn't have to do everything. And hopefully the younger guys are maturing and getting a little bit more confidence. And, Ilkanen has started to play well. Or Ilkanen, is it?
Ilkanen.
Ilkanen has played better. Vito, very inconsistent. But, I think for the most part, the win over Michigan State was big. Certainly had a chance to beat Maryland. And then what you got to do in the Big Ten especially, or any conference for that matter, you got to win the games you're supposed to win. And that's why going at Penn State and winning pretty handily is what it's about for good teams, is they beat the teams they're supposed to beat.
It's also usually been about winning at home, and I think this is the third straight time they're an underdog at home, which is just kind of weird to think about.
And I don't like Tom Crean, so let's win tonight.
You're the only one, I think.
Yeah,
right?
No, I think there's 2 other people that don't like Tom Crean, so I'm third.
Maybe 2 million.
Sorry, Tom.
Not a favorite.
No.
Of just about anyone.
No.
A lot of times even Indiana fans.
No, I don't like Indiana basketball.
I guess we should we said at the top, obviously Thursday night is Parker Craig.
Big Parker Craig week.
There was
all
Parker Craig started last week with the girls game, and Annie Schumacher should mention the buzzer beater that she hit to beat Parker, and she's been a thorn in their side for her career. They'll probably be happy to see her go.
And it's funny because that's 7 times in a row that Craig's beaten Parker, and really that is a good rivalry. I don't care what anyone says. I mean, 7 in a row, you'd think, well, that's not really a rivalry, but when you think back a decade ago, it was the opposite.
Right.
And it was back when Tom Clowater used to despise playing Craig because he said, I've got nothing to gain when we win and everything to lose when we do lose, because we're supposed to go in there and win. And now
it's kind of flipped.
It's kind of flipped, and it makes for very good basketball, and it makes for it makes me look forward to the tournament, hoping that those 2 teams meet up again.
But also, as I wrote over the weekend, even though they have won 7 in a row, 4 of the last 5 have been decided by 3 points or less. Yeah. So if that's not a rivalry, then I don't know what is.
Exactly.
I mean, it's coming down to the last shot of pretty much every game.
Yeah, and kudos to Annie Schumacher for twice delivering the dagger that sent the Vikings home with a loss.
So this week we got the boys game Thursday, and obviously Craig won that one, I think by like 13 early in the first meeting. It was kind of
played well, got off to a good start.
They got out to a huge start, and then it was kind of just even from there. Will be interesting to see. I don't think Craig is fully meshed together here now that their lineup is
not playing very well right now. No, I had a chance to see him play against Middleton, and Middleton's number 2 team in the state, but Craig just looked out of sync a little bit.
I think they just got to find an identity.
They do, and that's exactly what I was going to say. I'm not saying it's a chemistry issue, but you've added Riley Jensen now. You've got some size in the middle, and they're not getting much out of their post right now. And the first thing Coach Miller will tell you is we've got to get, if we don't get scoring from our 2 big guys, we've got to get other things. We got to get rebounds, and we got to get blockouts, and we got to get make that drive to the rim challenging for the opponent. And I think more than anything for Craig is the pieces are there. They just got to fit them together.
And Parker, they've been in some pretty close games a lot this year, and with teams they're coming off a close loss to Middleton even. Yeah. So, you don't know what you're going to get here Thursday night. It could be an interesting game.
And I hate to beat a dead horse, but it all comes back to winning and that mentality and knowing how to finish and knowing how to not put teams away, but to get to the point where you decide you play to win instead of not to lose. And for Parker, hasn't learned how to do that quite yet. But I do like what Keith Miller's done over there. They're a lot of energy. They play hard. And, when you get Parker, that they're going to give you everything they got. And I would think in the Parker gym on Thursday night, again, Al Fagerli's last game. And, I would expect the Vikings to be a little bit more competitive than the first time against Craig.
Then we've got 2 on Friday night. We've got the Swimmers at Parker. It's Parker, Craig, and West.
Madison West, which is too bad because West is head and shoulders above Craig and Parker, and you would hope that it would just be those 2.
Some of that,
but Parker hasn't beaten Craig in the last 13 dual meets, so we'll see what happens.
And they very well could.
They could.
Should be close.
They could. Yep. Should be a good meet.
5:30 that one starts at, and then if you want to pull off 2 in one night, you can go over to Craig.
Watch the Big 8 champion Cougars.
Essentially starts at 7. Craig and Parker wrestling at Craig. Probably more like 7:15, 7:30,
something like that after the JV matches. Yep.
But should be. It's just this. We're getting toward the end of the things, which is when I like to see these teams meet
again,
each other.
A shout out to Mark Mullen and the Craig wrestling team for winning the Big 8 title, the dual meet title. I mean, that's a pretty good conference to do that in because there's some good teams and certainly a lot of good individuals. And I think for people going to Friday night's match, don't concentrate so much on the score. Craig probably is going to win that. Concentrate more on the kids that are there that are pretty good wrestlers, and Parker's got their share as well. I mean, Craig has certainly got a number of good kids: Logan Baker, Aristide Serrano, Nate Farrell, Ethan Smith, Stone Klingeman. There's kids that got some good experience, but Parker's got, Logan Murdy's ranked in the top 10 in the state. Devon Thornton's is a pretty good wrestler. Gage Burdick at 113 pounds has had a good year. So take an eye and keep a closer eye on just the individual matchups and the good wrestlers and kids that, have a chance to get to the state tournament.
That's right around the corner. He'll be here before we know it. Yeah. We'll talk a little more about where we're at down the stretch, maybe some conference basketball races. Regionals, I think, for wrestling are next weekend already. So, I mean, we're about to hit postseason, and we'll get to more of the high school stuff here in the coming weeks. And obviously, the Super Bowl next week, Super Bowl 50. So, let us know what you think of the show. You can leave a review on YouTube or iTunes, and we'll read it here next week. Or you can find us on Twitter and let us know how much you hate us, or what you think is going to happen in the Super Bowl, or what you think the court should be named after.
We should
or
name
the rim
this
should
table
be named
after Eric or John. And
this is Andy Ryder table right here.
Yep, on the Eric Schmaltz studio and the John Barry microphones. Yes.
Email us at gazetteextra.com. Thanks to Andy Ryder for producing the show and Kevin McLeod for the music. And we'll see you next year. See you here next week.
Next week. That sounds good. Yeah, that's good English.
Use your words.
Okay.
See you here next week, everybody.
Go Bucky.